Yeah, that's what they're.
The Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission meeting of May 8, 2024 is now called to order. As we begin the meeting tonight, Ms. Armour, will you please make a presentation regarding the town's rules of decorum and civility?
Yes, thank you. For the benefit of the community, the Town of Los Gatos asks that you follow the town's meeting guidelines while attending town meetings and treat everyone with respect and dignity.
Thank you. Let's proceed with our roll call then. As I say your name, please acknowledge by saying here. Vice Chair Thomas?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett? Here. Commissioner Burnett?
Here.
Commissioner Hanson?
Here.
Commissioner Janoff?
Here.
And Commissioner Mayer?
Here.
Thank you all for your attendance. Vice Chair, will you please lead us in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. So we'll begin tonight with verbal communications portion of our meeting, during which members of the public are invited to address the commission on any issue that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Staff will announce when your 3-minute time limit is up. I have received no speakers cards for anybody in attendance wishing to speak on verbal communications. Ms. Armour, is anybody on Zoom who wishes to speak?
If you wish to speak during verbal communications, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
Thank you. Then we'll proceed beyond verbal communications and now proceed to the other business portion of our calendar. Tonight we have no consent calendar, so we'll proceed directly to other business. And we have one matter on our other business agenda, that is forwarding a recommendation of approval to the Town Council for the draft proposed capital improvement, that is the CIP budget for fiscal years 2024-25 through 2028-29. Ms. Armour, who will be presenting the staff report on this matter?
Thank you. We have our Parks and Public Works Director here to present this project.
Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Nicole Burnham, the Director of Parks and Public Works for the Town of Los Gatos. As noted, tonight we're asking the Commission to find that the projects in the proposed fiscal year 23-24 to 28-29 Capital Improvement Program budget are consistent with the general plan, as well as 3 specific plans for North 40, Albright specific plan, and the Hillside specific plan. The projects in the proposed capital improvement program support implementation of various goals and policies that are outlined in the general plan. There was a copy of the full CIP document that was appended to the report. There was a link to the webpage where it was located. And then I did send some follow-up information noting that a summary project list of all proposed projects is on page B5 and B6 of the document. But specifically, the mobility element goals are furthered and met with projects such as our annual street repair and resurfacing projects, a Shannon Road repair project, and the Shannon Road bicycle and pedestrian project, among others. I'm only going to highlight a few. I won't walk you through every project, although happy to do that on the Q&A if you'd like. Projects such as the roadside fuel reduction and townwide vegetation management, as well as various storm drainage projects, support the goals of the hazards and safety elements of the general plan. The open space, parks and recreation goals and policies are supported by projects like the Highway 9 Trailhead Connector, which is currently under construction. Some of you may see it if you drive down Highway 9 near University, as well as open space trail upgrades, and as well as other projects in the parks section of the proposed budget. And the public facilities, services, and infrastructure goals and policies are furthered by a number of also projects that would cross-reference to the mobility element that relate to public safety, such as our annual curb gutter sidewalk improvement project, Blossom Hill safety improvements from Union to Camden, which is a new project this year, and other projects that relate to enhancing the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists around town. The environment and sustainability goals are furthered in projects like the tree replacement project for trees on Overlook, where we recently removed a number of eucalyptus trees. We'll replace those with native trees, assuming the budget is adopted, and stormwater pollution prevention projects. Happy to go into detail on any of those projects or any of the elements of the general plan. But if the commission does find consistency, then we request that you forward a recommendation to council that they approve and adopt the CIP. Thank you.
Thank you so much for not only your oral presentation, but the written materials you've provided to us, very detailed and very thoughtful. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Burnham or any members of staff? Yes, Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you. I actually have 3 questions, and I'll defer to our chair as to whether I can present them all at once or mix it up. We'll see. Thank you. First question is on page C22, having to do with the streets program. And my question is, do the brush and vegetation management extend the full width of the easement or just to the street edge?
The goal of the roadside fuel reduction is to get at least 20 feet of clear width and 13 feet of clear height. So we would extend past the edge of pavement to the limit of right-of-way, provided we know where it is. Sometimes it's a little hazy, but we're working on trying to sort that out. But that is the goal, is to extend past the limit.
Okay, that's good. And then on page C30, regarding the speed monitoring, can you explain how it says the data are used to inform the setting of speed limits, and I didn't know if that means increases or decreases or what?
It's a good question. And so the way that my understanding of how this program has historically worked and how speed limits have been set, we do speed limit studies and speed studies, evaluate how fast cars are moving down a road, and then you set the speed limit at like the 85th percentile of the speed you've registered. But as you can imagine, as we change roads and make them easier to drive and cars change, it's been increasing the speed limits. So we are evaluating different ways of setting speed limits. However, right now the state still requires the speed studies. So in theory, they set the speed limit, but I think in actuality, we'll end up looking at that a little bit differently when we make final recommendations on speed limits.
So to follow up on that, the town could set speed limits below the state standard?
You know, I'm not quite sure I can answer that question. I think we might like to. I'm not sure my friends in the police department would agree with me if I said that was an emphatic yes. So,
yes. Are you done with your?
No, I did have one more.
Okay. Did you want to interrupt, or I'm sorry, interject at this point, Vice Chair? Yeah. Yes. Okay? Please.
Okay, thank you. I did have a follow-up question to that. So would these speed studies then be able to inform looking into other like speed reducing remedies, such as like making lanes smaller, reducing lane size, adding other things? Does that help inform some of that?
That's not the intent of the work. The work is purely to measure and monitor speed.
Okay.
That said, I think if we found something that seemed really out of bounds on a roadway, we might then prioritize that roadway for traffic calming.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hopefully that's kind of what I was thinking too.
Thank you. And first, let me apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was interrupting.
And Commissioner Burnham, your final question.
Thank you. My final question is on page C-79 on bridge projects, and it states that Los Gatos does not have a designated funding source for repairing, maintaining, and improving the town's bridges and relies upon grant programs for major bridge improvements. My question is, do we always know we're going to get a grant, or should we give consideration to including bridges through the revenues, general revenues of the town?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, we don't have, as it's stated, we don't have a set funding source. We also don't own a large number of bridges, luckily. The Quito Road Bridge is actually, that bridge replacement is actually being run by the city of Saratoga, and we're just funding the support. The Highway 17 overcrossing is a new bridge. I think if we needed structural replacement of a bridge, it's something we'd have to talk about and plan ahead for, based on, and we would know that, be able to predict that based on, periodic bridge safety inspections that get completed. And I will just add regarding the speed limit. So the town engineer actually just messaged me to let me know that we do have to set the speed limit. So I was right. My friends at PD would not be happy if I said neither would the town engineer apparently, if we were to set the criteria. We have to set speed limits based on criteria in the vehicle code and that 85th percentile speed.
I see. Thank you for all those responses. Very helpful.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
I had a question about I'm on the page B5, the Shannon Road repair. I did read the description that was in the document of the project, and I live on Santa Rosa Drive, so I know all about it. But my question was really about the funding for the project, because I understand the phase 2 of the repair is a pretty expensive repair, and maybe it's just the way that we report things. It says estimated carry forward. It's about a $5 million project. Estimated carry forward of $4.2 million basically, but the 2024 to 25 budget is $500,000. And it said in the description that the work would be done in 2024 or 2025. So do you just add those together, or like how does that work if the budget's only $500,000?
Yeah, so the carry forward is money that's already in the, quote, in the bank, has already been funded in prior fiscal years, and we haven't spent it. And so we carry it forward into the next fiscal year. And we haven't spent it because we haven't moved into construction yet. We're close, but we're working on acquiring the necessary property rights to execute the project. The proposed budget, we're proposing to add another $500,000. So we're saying the project's going to be more than the 4.1 that we have already. We need additional
Due to add to it.
Yep. And you end up with the column that says 24-25 budget with carry forward. That's $4.674 million.
Yeah.
That will be our total budget available for the project.
Okay, that's helpful. I have one other question, if that's okay. On the Union to Camden project, I mean, this is a subject of a lot of discussion by residents because of the death that happened. But my understanding is that from Union to about Lee and maybe up to Harwood might be the town of Los Gatos on the one side. How are we going to do this project? Because some of it's San Jose.
We've been coordinating with San Jose. We coordinated with them on the federal grant application. They also had a fatality not long after ours in that same corridor. So we agree, we have mutual interest in evaluating and doing work there. So we will work with them, and they will help. They're planning to help cost share.
Okay. And it is the case that if you go past Harwood, that's San Jose, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we absolutely do have to cooperate with them to make this happen. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. And thank you for coming tonight. You're very knowledgeable, and I really appreciate all the work you do on this massive project and element. So going through the general plan, I became concerned. I was reading so much about storm drainage and it being a big priority in the general plan. It's talked about all over the place, and I know it goes into your area. And then I thought, well, I wonder what funding actually goes into that, because it is a priority for our general plan. And as a planning commissioner, that's part of my job to make sure that the CIB, the budget, is, looks at what the general plan, what funding needs to go to certain projects. And like I say, the storm drains are a big deal. So I was looking at the budget, and of course, our budget this year is going to be over 32 million. It's 33 million. And then in 5 years, it's going to be up to 54 million, basically. So then I thought, well, I wonder what goes into for our storm drains. So I gave tried to put in every kind of water, storm drainage, clean, in all the different things that were on the proposal. And out of all the items, there's 7 items connected with storm drain, drainage, water systems, and all those, our new budget right now, there was only $510,000 budgeted for anything to do with water. In 5 years, you take us out, how much is budgeted for storm drains and repair and whatever, we're only talking about $2,300,000 out of a $53 million budget. So it is concerning. I know we did have carryover funds in those same, there's, like I say, there's, I think, what, six areas. We had 929,000. Yeah. And so that's a fair amount, but compared to our budget and compared to any new funds going into our storm drainage areas, I'm fairly concerned about that.
So our storm drainage projects are funded through a storm drainage mitigation fee that gets charged on development projects. So as they come in, they pay a fee. And it goes into dedicated funding that we then put back into projects. It is true we haven't in recent years done many storm drainage projects. There haven't been many in the books. We did, in the last year's budget cycle, we proposed 4 or 5 new storm drainage projects, and then we ended up with a staffing shortage, and so hadn't worked any of them off. But they remain in there, in the budget. And you're right, there's, $500,000-$600,000 worth of projects. And in general, those projects require some study. It's not as, I don't know exactly what we're going to build yet, right? I mean, like one of them is Loma Street area where they have significant street flooding. We have suspicions of what the cause is, but we're not 100% certain. So rather than putting a bunch of money into the project and assuming we know what we're going to build, we put in a modest amount, $100,000 or so, to be able to study the drainage system and study the area and figure out what we need to do. And then the result of that study can then tell us what we're going to need to design, and we'll have a better idea of what our design costs and construction costs will be moving forward. So it's a good observation that there's a modest, our budgeting on storm drainage is pretty modest, and we're carrying balance in our storm drainage funds. But the idea is to work kind of sequentially and logically through the projects in the hope that it helps in the delivery, right? It doesn't.
Thank you for that. I was just concerned because over 80% of our budgeting is going to other things, and such a small amount to some priority that is addressed in our general plan. That was my concern. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to follow up on Commissioner Burnett's comments, she raises a good point. Our mandate, what we're really tasked with here this evening, is forming a recommendation to Town Council to confirm that the budget is in conformance and in compliance with our general plan and our specific plans. So, thank you. Other commissioners, questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open now the public portion of this agenda item. If you are members of the public, I have no cards in front of me, but if you wish to speak, please approach the podium, or Ms. Armour, if we have any members of the public on Zoom who wish to be heard.
Thank you. We have no hands raised.
Okay, and seeing nobody come forward, I will close the public portion of this matter. and then invite questions, comments, discussions, or a motion from my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Janoff.
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you. Once again, it's impressive to see the amount of work that goes into this capital improvement document. There's a lot of good work there. I can see that it ties nicely with our general plan and the other required required plans of town. So thank you. I think it's a comprehensive document and is a good plan to recommend going forward.
Thank you so much. Other commissioners? Commissioner Hanson.
If no one else has any comments, I would be happy to make a motion. Okay, my motion is to forward a recommendation of approval to the town council for the draft proposed capital improvement program for budget for fiscal years 24, 25 to 28 to 29, as detailed in Exhibit 1. I can make the findings that this is categorically exempt from CEQA and that the projects in the draft proposed capital improvement budget are consistent with the general plan, the North 40 specific plan, the Albright specific plan, and the Hillside specific plan.
Thank you very much for that motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Janoff.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Commissioners, I'll put the motion to a vote by raise of hands. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate. Commissioner, okay. And voting against? Okay. So we have 6 for and 1 against. And the motion carries. Ms. Armour, are there appeal rights?
No, this is a recommendation, so there is no appeal.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for all your hard work. All right, let's move then to item number 2. Item number 2 is a request for approval for construction of a neighborhood identification sign on property zoned R-2 1/2 PD. This project is not subject to CEQA pursuant to section 15061B3. Project is located at 230 Laterra Court, APN 527-12-006. Architecture and site application S-24-006. Property owner Greenridge Terrace Development, LLC. The applicant is David Fox. The project planner is Sean Mullen. First of all, by show of hands, may I see those commissioners that have visited the property? Thank you so much. And are there any disclosures? Seeing none. Mr. Mullen, can we please have staff report this evening?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. The item before you tonight is consideration of a neighborhood identification sign for the Laterra subdivision, which was approved under the Greenridge Terrace Plan Development in 2019. The neighborhood consists of 8 hillside properties that are currently undeveloped. A building permit is currently under review for new entry gates and retaining walls in the area of the proposed sign. The sign would be mounted to a retaining wall, which is included in the building permit. The sign includes materials and colors reflective of the surrounding hillside environment. The text and logo are simple and well proportioned, and the location of the sign and lack of illumination allow for it to maintain a low profile and integrate with its surroundings. The sign meets the intent and standards of the town's sign ordinance, as well as the development standards specific to neighborhood identification signs. Based on the analysis provided in your staff report, staff recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions included in Exhibit 3. This concludes my presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mullen. Commissioners, questions for staff on this matter? Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
Maybe I'm just not looking at this the right way, but since they haven't constructed anything yet and it's in the building permit stage, was it approved to have a sign in the architecture and site originally, or has this been added? It seems like we're possibly putting the cart before the horse.
Thank you for that question. The plan development from 2019 does make mention of a neighborhood identification sign, although the plans were not specific to the location or details of the sign. This is an added entitlement that if the Planning Commission were to approve tonight could be installed as part of the retaining wall project that is currently in the building permit phase.
Okay, and if I could make a follow-up question.
Please.
The other thing I was having a reaction to was it isn't, I've lived in Los Gatos for over 20 years, and I can't think of too many places where we actually have signs as well, first of all, we don't have a lot of gates to neighborhoods, and second of all, we don't have a lot of signs indicating neighborhoods. I mean, I live in a neighborhood where we have a neighborhood association, but we have no signage whatsoever other than the street signs that say what streets we live on. And so I'm just trying to understand why this is so important to do, when it doesn't seem consistent with how we do things in neighborhoods now.
Thank you for that question. I think in general, the town, you're correct, there's not a whole lot of neighborhood identification signs, although they are scattered throughout the town. The consideration of a neighborhood sign is pretty rare because the neighborhood generally is going to be a new neighborhood, and that doesn't pop up very often. The proposed gates, which are under the building permit, they're leading to or closing off a private driveway serving 2 lots and a private road that's serving the remaining 6 lots. Regarding the, blanking on the second half of the question, I apologize, but
If you could repeat the second half of the question.
I was just saying that we don't normally have these kinds of things in our neighborhood, and I'm just wondering what is the why behind it? Because if we don't have a lot of these things, and it's all the way up there in the hill, is it going to help delivery people to find the neighborhood? I'm just searching for the why. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, especially since they haven't constructed anything yet and they have no houses there. They're going to go put this big gate there, and then a sign indicating the neighborhood, and there's no neighborhood to do that. So I'm trying to understand the why of this, and why now. So.
And thank you for repeating that portion of the question. I think part of the question was sort of the cart before the horse. I think the applicant can certainly speak to the timing of why this the sign and the retaining walls and the gates are being installed now. I think the general direction is that this is the progression of the project from the original subdivision and creating the lots on paper, the roads and the retaining walls that have been installed, and the future individual development applications that will come forward on the 8 lots.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Actually, let me ask you, first as a follow-up to Commissioner Hansen's questions, I think she rightly indicates that we don't have a great many of these, but they are not precluded, correct? This is a permitted sign in our town, and the only reason it's coming before us is because the way our town code is drifted is that this request automatically comes before us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And more specific to this project, I noticed that the applicant's letter indicated that they would be willing to maintain the sign, but that's not dealt with in the conditions of approval. If we were to proceed with approval of this, could we add a condition such that the appropriate party, presumably the HOA or the developer, would be responsible for maintaining the sign?
Yes, you could add that.
Great, thank you so much. Commissioners, any other questions? No. Okay. Then I'd ask that a representative of the applicant appear to discuss. Ms. Armour, do we have a person on Zoom?
Yes, I do believe we've got the applicant on Zoom, and they should be able to talk now. You're unmuted.
Hello.
Yes, good. If you could state your name for the record.
Good evening, commissioners. Please excuse my voice. I have a very bad cold. My name is David Fox. I'm a landscape architect, and I was the applicant on this.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. I'm sorry to interrupt. You'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation before us.
Well, it'll be very short, actually. In answer to the commissioner's query about neighborhood signs, the subdivision that is right next door, the Highlands of Los Gatos, they do have a neighborhood sign just as you enter on Shady Lane. And part of the rationale for this was this is a new area, new subdivision, and it was to differentiate it from the Highlands, which is actually right next door. As Mr. Mullen said, this is on a private road. It's not on a public street, and the gates are closing off a private road. The sign is very low profile. That retaining wall is about 3 feet on one end and about 1 foot on the other, and the letters are only a foot high. So it's not intrusive, it's not lit. It's just some differentiation from the Sahadi subdivision next door to it and from the Highlands subdivision, which also is next door to it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fox. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Barnett.
Yes, sir. As you were listening to our discussion, the issue of maintenance came up, and I was wondering if you could comment on how that might be integrated through covenants, conditions, and restrictions or some other matter if we made that a condition. It would be in the...
Yes, the sign is metal letters. They would be very low maintenance, but the owners of the subdivision would certainly be open to having a provision in the conditions of approval that the sign is to be maintained in the original condition into perpetuity by either the developer until all the lots are sold, and then subsequently by the HOA.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? No, thank you, Mr. Fox. You will have a chance at the end of this presentation to address us again should you desire. I don't have any yellow cards from members of the public. Would anybody present wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, Ms. Armour, do we have anybody on Zoom who wishes to speak on this matter?
We did have a hand raised, Mark, but he has now lowered his hand. So I think he might be with the applicant team. So no, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. Then I will address the applicant one more time. Should you wish to address the Planning Commission for any final comments? If not, I will close the public portion of this hearing. All right, hearing no response. Oh, sorry, Ms. Armour.
Yes, the developer has raised their hand.
Thank you. Mr. Fox?
This is Mark Ellenborgen.
Yes, hello?
And Mark, you should be able to unmute yourself.
This is Mark Ellenbogen. I represent the applicant, and to reiterate what Mr. Fox said, we have already set up our HOA. We have Department of Real Estate approval for the Homeowners Association, and the signage was included as a maintenance and reserve item in anticipation of us coming back into the board and gaining this approval if possible.
Very good. And just so our record is complete, if you could state one more time your name for the record, please.
My name is Mark Ellenbogen, and I am a representative for the owners.
Very good. And then again, with respect to maintenance, then it would be applicant's position that the developer would be responsible for maintenance up until the time that the lots were sold, and at that point the HOA would take over. Is that correct?
That's correct. At the point in time that 75% of the lots are conveyed, the HOA will transfer to the to a collective of the lot owners, and the signage will be maintained in perpetuity through that agreement.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any final questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I will close the public portion of this matter and then invite questions, comments, or a motion from commissioners. I'll go ahead and begin. I'll just say this, to me, this seems to be a fairly straightforward, commonsensical matter, so long as the maintenance issue is, as we've discussed this evening, it seems to me that the sign is within our town parameters, and I wouldn't see a problem with this one going forward. Yes, Commissioner Janoff.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to comment that in a strange way, this signage is internally consistent with the Highlands development. I thought there was one other sign I saw up there too. So, it's a similar font, it's a similar look. And if their intention is to differentiate from the Highlands because this is a different development, I think that makes some sense. And I don't have any issue with the matter.
Yes, Vice Chair.
I agree. I think that, now that I've been on the Planning Commission for a while, this is a new one for me. So I had similar, original thoughts as Commissioner Hanson, because we don't see a lot of brand new full developments, but I think that it's, a good modest sign. It provides the, viewing. I mean, it's not distracting or anything, and we've received no negative public comment about it. So I am supporting it.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson.
I just wanted to make a comment that despite my questions, I don't necessarily have a problem with this. And my main reason for not having a problem with this is that this development has approved plan development. And I worked on the plan development ordinance when we revised it a few years back. And the plan development normally has things in there that might be different from what our code says specific to this plan development. So, and this is a fairly secluded thing way up there off of Shady Lane. So I don't have a problem with going forward, especially since there's already a sign for the Highlands. But I did want to ask the question because as we go forward and might look at additional PDs, I'm not sure that having neighborhood signage is a thing that befits our general plan in general. But for this application, I think it's fine.
Thank you. Any further comments? Yes, Commissioner Mayer.
Yeah, I just want to comment. I think this is actually an attractive sign. I like how the sign is integrated with a retaining wall. So the retaining wall is actually serving the function of being a retaining wall. So this isn't just like a sign that's tacked on. It's sort of integrated in with something that's going to be there anyway. And I really appreciate sort of the simple but elegant material palette of the stone veneer wall with the dark bronze metal letters. I think it's pretty tasteful as far as signs go.
Thank you so much. Any other? Seeing none, Commissioner Barnett.
I'll just add that I think it is very harmonious with the surroundings and in very good taste. And the thought of not putting lighting in there is appreciated. So I would support a motion in favor.
Thank you. It seems like we're all in accordance. Would somebody care to make a motion? Vice Chair.
I move to approve for construction of a neighborhood identification sign on property zoned HR 2.5 PD. And I can make the following, or APN 527-12-006, and I can make the following findings: that the project is exempt from CEQA. It meets our objective standards in Chapter 29 of our town code. It is in conformance with the Planned Development Ordinance 2281. It complies with the Hillside Development Standards and Guidelines and complies with the Hillside Specific Plan. I would like to add the change to the condition of approval that, as the applicant stated, once 75% of the properties have been sold, the responsibility would be transferred to the HOA or however staff sees fit with making sure that the maintenance of the sign is maintained throughout its lifetime.
Thank you. Staff, is that appropriate? Very good. Thank you for that motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Janoff.
I'll second the motion. And do we need to include Exhibit 3 as part of the motion?
The motion, yes, let's make that explicit, that the condition is being added to the other conditions of approval in Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Yeah. If the maker of the motion is
Yes.
satisfied, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Barnett.
And for staff, the staff report includes considerations to be made. Should that be explicit?
Yes, please.
If so, I would ask the maker of the motion include the considerations which are on page 10.
Yes.
And the second as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion, commissioners? No, then by show of hands, can I see all those in favor of the motion? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Ms. Armour, are there any appeal rights?
There are. The decision of the commission can be appealed to town council by any interested person as defined by Town Code Section 2910-020 within 10 days on forms available online with fees paid. The final deadline is 4 p.m. on the 10th day.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on then to item number 3. Consider an appeal of a community development director decision to deny a request to remove a presumptive historic property that is pre-1941 from the Historic Resources Inventory on properties owned R-18 located at 32 Euclid Avenue APN 529-30-064. The project is exempt pursuant to CEQA Section 15601B3. The request for review application PHST-24-001. Property owner, applicant, appellant is David Wilson. Project planner is Sean Mullen. May I have a show of hands of commissioners who have visited the property? Thank you. And any disclosures? Seeing none. Mr. Mullen, I understand you're going to give our staff presentation. I also understand that the applicant has requested that this matter be continued to a date certain of June 12, 2024. So that being said, my plan is to have staff make a presentation this evening, open public discourse, and then continue the matter without closing public discourse.
Thank you. And I was prepared to provide a very brief presentation that basically summarizes what you've said, that the applicant has requested continuance based on the availability of the project team. Then staff recommends that the Planning Commission open the public hearing, receive any public comment from folks that are in attendance tonight due to the noticing, and continue the item to a date certain of June 12th, at which time I can provide a full staff presentation and the public hearing can be opened again for any additional comments from folks that did not comment tonight.
Thank you so much for that. Given the brevity of the staff report, are there any questions for staff? No, then I'll open the public portion of the public hearing. And since we are, or it may be the case that we continue this matter to June 12th, I would encourage members of the public who wish to make public comment to reserve comment until the meeting of June 12th, where there may be more information available. I acknowledge, however, that there may be some people here tonight who are unable to attend the continued hearing date, and those people may wish to speak tonight. So with that prefatory language being said, any members of the public who wish to be heard this evening instead of June 12th, you approach the, I have no card, so if you wish to approach the podium to be heard. Oh. Or, Ms. Harmer, are there any members on Zoom?
We have no hands raised.
Okay. Therefore, Commissioners, pursuant to applicant's request, I would make a motion to move this matter to a date certain of June 12, 24, based on applicant's request. Do I have a second on that motion? Commissioner Barnett. Oh, or first discussion among commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Barnett.
I'm sorry, I went to second the motion.
Oh, well, sorry, next time.
And I had a lot of competition.
Oh, I'm sorry. Of course. Please approach the podium, and please, if you could state your name for us. Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Forbes. Before you sit down, Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Forbes? See, thank you again for your comments this evening. Any other comments before I, there is a motion pending then, before the, oh, I think
Do we have a second?
do we have a second on the motion? Yeah. Commissioner Barnett, we have a motion. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Commissioners?
Oh, I thought you said Barnett. Or
No.
Barnett.
Okay, there's a motion pending. All those in favor of continuing this matter until June 12, 24, please indicate by raising your hands. And the motion is unanimous. Thank you so much. And again, because it's a continuance, I would imagine there are no appeal rights at this point. This takes us then to the report from the Community Development Department. Ms. Armour, do we have a report?
Yes, thank you. Since the Planning Commission's previous meeting was canceled, we've got a month of news to share. But I want to start with the news on the housing element, that the letter from the state was received last Friday. So very exciting to receive a letter stating that the draft housing element does meet all of the statutory requirements for state certification. We are now going to move on to the final steps in the housing element certification process, which involves review by Planning Commission on the 22nd of this month, Town Council is tentatively scheduled to then consider your recommendation on June 4th. There is, starting tomorrow and for the following 7 days until 5 p.m. on Wednesday of next week, we will be receiving any public comments for the required 7-day public comment period. That is one of the technical requirements from prior to any future resubmittal to HCD. So we are excited to be moving forward with that process. In addition to that, there have been 2 town council meetings. On April 16th, there was the appeal for 501 Monterey Avenue. However, they have decided to withdraw their appeal, and so they're moving forward with a different method for addressing their intended reuse of the property. And consideration and adoption of the revised story pool policy was completed that evening as well. And then last night, on May 7th, the town council met again. We had a number of planning-related items. One was discussion of potential increased noticing for neighbor notification for some of the larger projects that we are seeing coming into town, and the direction from council was to expand the standard 300-foot notification for projects that are 3 stories or higher to a 1,000 range notification, and that would be at the receipt of either the preliminary application or formal application, and then at the notification for public hearing, we would also use the 1,000-foot. There was also some discussion as to whether some additional objective design standards should be pursued, and so there will be some ongoing conversations on that topic. And adoption of the sign code modifications that you saw previously, with a slight modification for signs related to specific events that they must be taken down within 7 days. And finally, the changes to the SB 9, Senate Bill 9 regulations with some minor modifications from what was recommended to Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hara. This takes us now to the subcommittee reports. In addition to their service on the Planning Commissioner, every commissioner also serves on a subcommittee, which includes the CDAC, the GPAC, the Housing Element Advisory Board, and the Historic Preservation Committee. It's been some time since the Planning Commission has met. Commissioners, would you like to provide reports on any subcommittee meetings since that time? It's Commissioner Barnett.
Yes, we did have a Historic Preservation Committee meeting on April 24th. I was not able to attend because of a cold, but my fellow commissioner, Adam Mayer, did attend, and if there's any questions, I'm sure you would be able to answer for the committee or the commission. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Other committee reports? Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
I didn't have a committee report, but since you mentioned all the committees that were on, I wanted to make sure that it was clear that the Housing Element Advisory Board was disbanded. It was a special purpose board that was set up for the purpose of directing the housing element. And then when Town Council decided to take up charge of the housing element directly and have all of the changes go directly through them, the Housing Element Advisory Board. So there will not be any more Housing Element Advisory Board meetings or reports until the next Housing Element, or when the Town Council, if they decide to have a Housing Element Advisory Board.
Okay.
Same is also true of the General Plan Update Committee. So the only committee that we will be reporting on would be the General Plan Committee from that perspective, and we haven't met as a General Plan Committee recently.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you so much. Any other committee reports? Seeing none. Again, I wish to thank staff for their work this evening, and Public Works. I'm afraid we've lost our representative, but if you would extend our great thanks to Public Works. I'm sure that was not a single person effort, but many, many people, many hours. So thank them again, and thank staff again for all your efforts this evening. And with that, I'll adjourn this meeting.